Okay, in this video we are going to talk about the literary elements of the book To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. We're going to study the settings of these things, and we're going to see some important parts about the book. The book takes place in the southern United States in 1930. There were some important things in the 30s. There were the Great Depressions, prejudice and legal segregation was legal, and also there was a lot of ignorance against racism and all of these things. The first thing that we will see is what was the Great Depression of the United States in 1930. It began when the stock market crashed in October 1929. So the businesses failed, factories closed, people were out of work, even people with money suffered because nothing was being produced for sale, and poor people lost their homes and they were forced to leave from the land, right? This was basically one of the characteristics. So as we see, we have basically over here the racial prejudice, and it was alive. And although slavery had ended in 1864, the whole idea that uh, slavery was still very strong, right? And it didn't change too much. And we will see that, right? There were a racial separation, and this is called segregation. We have seen this in the previous videos, right? What segregation is, and basically segregation was that African American people and white people, they have different places where they could go. As you could see here, this hotel that was only for colored people. When talking about colored people, mostly they were African American people, but they could have been like people from Asia and Latin American as well. That's why they say colored, right? And then we have some other things like this picture, right? That was only for white people only, right? This cafe. And then we have those things, right, for colored people and only and for white people as well. So segregation was this. I was a little uncomfortable, but that's the way it is. That was like, this is like the most touchy part, like even for drinking water, as you could see, right? The one from the right is for colored people in really bad conditions, and the one from the left is for white people, and the conditions were really good. So you could see that part, right? It was not fair. So this is segregation, people. This is the white waiting room, and we have also the colored waiting room. I mean, even for taking the buses, it was for different people. I mean, people didn't, they have their special places in the buses as well. So that is one of the biggest characteristics of racial separation, or as we call it, segregation, right? There was also the gender bias, the prejudice, right? Not only about African American people, there was also prejudice and bias against women. In this case, women were considered weak by that time, and that is something that doesn't happen now. So in the case, like the very old saying, right, the machismo saying, which says women were generally not educated for occupations outside the home. So according to this time, the place of the women was the house, or the now that we consider this is illogical and not well seen, right, in these times. In wealthy families, women were expected to oversee their servants and entertain the guests. I mean, just for taking care of the house, right? And men not considered capable or nurturing children. So just the women were the ones who used to do that, and that is the bias and prejudice that we have by that time of the book. And also the white trash in the book. We have some families, for example the Ewells and the Cunninghams, poor and uneducated white people who lived on the relief. They were called the white trash. Even they have discrimination against their same type of people, let's say this way, right, the white ones. And these people were considered to be trash because they were poor and they didn't produce anything, like people like the Cunninghams in the book, or like the Ewells in the book as well. And also, there is another thing over here in the 1930s, the legal issue of the 1930s, which impacted the story. Women were given the vote in 1920, so they had the chance to vote by that time. Uh, the other problem was that the juries were only for male and white people. So black people, they didn't have the chance to go on a trial. And fair trial did not include acceptance for a black man's word against a white woman. Example, if I were an African American person and somebody who was white insulting me and they affected my life, I couldn't have gone to a white jury because I will always lose, right? That is the, like, let's say, like the disadvantage of this part. And we have in the novel we have some prejudice as well. We have race, gender, handicaps, rich versus poor, age, and religion. Those are the things that we find basically in the novel, right? Race, gender, handicaps, rich versus poor, and age and religion as well. And the characters, as we saw in the other video about the description of the characters, we have Atticus Finch, right, the lawyer, Jem, who was 10 years old by the time the book started, Scott, Jean Lewis, who is like the main character of the book, she was 6 when the book started, and Tom Robinson, right, the African American guy that was accused for raping a woman, and he was defended by Atticus, the Scott's father. So those are the characters of the book, people. The point of view, the story is told in first person, right? The story is told by Scott, right, a 10-year-old girl, right? When the book ended, right, she was 10 years old. Harper Lee is actually a woman. Scott represents the author as a little girl, although the story is not strictly an autobiography. But in this case, Harper Lee, her lifestyle was very similar to the lifestyle of Scott. Her father was a lawyer. Her mother, she didn't die, but she was very sick. She had a mental problem like Boo Radley. So in this case, that's like the comparison. And also, her father in real life, he liked to help to African American people as well. So Scott and Harper Lee, they are very similar in this case. So basically, guys, this is how the literary elements of the book, the To Kill a Mockingbird, work, right? So hope to see you soon. Take care.